Horror movies are incredibly difficult to make. You have to have a good script with authentic scares, and a crop of characters that the audience will be enthralled by, while also having a deeper message in the undercurrents of the script. It's rare to find a horror that does it all, which is why there are so many bad ones. These are the top 5 dumbest horror movie sequels, part 4. Let's jump in. Coming in at number 5, we have Pet Sematary 2. To be honest, I'm only just now discovering that there was a sequel to Pet Sematary. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, everything has a sequel these days. Released in 1992 and directed by Mary Lambert, once again, Pet Sematary 2 stars the likes of Edward Furlong, Anthony Edwards, Clancy Brown and Jared Rushton, with it following Jeff Matthews, a boy who moves with his father to his recently deceased mother's hometown after her passing. Soon they come to discover that the local Native American cemetery resurrects dead corpses. Classic. Now, Mary Lambert's original take on the Stephen King novel of the same name was superb and well executed. The movie was utterly terrifying, with characters such as Zelda lingering in the minds of viewers even today. However, the sequel to the hit movie was horrific in the worst way possible. The movie kicks off with a rabid dog causing problems, Cujo style, with a character getting resurrected and attempting to fit in with the living, in turn making the film feel more like a comedy than a follow-up to a well-thought-out horror. The movie is messy in a truly horrendous way, with it single-handedly crushing the dreams of ever having a successful franchise. The movie is essentially beating a dead horse, or corpse, should I say. It's a rehash of the original, bringing nothing new or not even remotely interesting to the table. This is one worth skipping over, that's for sure. Before we jump into number 4, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, it really helps us out a lot in the YouTube algorithm. Coming in at number 4, we have Friday the 13th, Part 3. At least one of the Friday the 13th sequels always manages to find a place on our list, simply because some of them are utterly ridiculous, including this one. Released in 1982 and directed by Steve Miner, Friday the 13th Part 3 is the 3rd installment in the Friday the 13th franchise, and is the direct sequel to Friday the 13th Part 2. Starring Dana Kimmel and Paul Kratka, the film follows a teenage girl and her friends who go on a trip not far from Camp Crystal Lake, where a wounded Jason has taken refuge until returning for another killing spree. Now, much like Halloween, the first 2 parts of the Friday the 13th franchise sort of exist hand in hand. They fit perfectly together. 2 halves of the same slasher story. However, when Part 3 rolled around, folks quickly realised the quality was tossed out of the window, and the franchise had instead become gimmicky. I mean, this should come as no surprise. Saw did the exact same thing. The first movie was excellent, the second enjoyable, the third was utter trash. And then it was all downhill from there. Much could be said about Friday the 13th franchise. There are so many, almost too many laughable moments in this movie that make it at times unwatchable. The effects were horrendous, with the performances leaving a lot to be desired. An interesting tidbit of information, this film marks the first appearance of Jason's signature hockey mask, which has since become a trademark of the character and the franchise as a whole. Which is crazy that this started this train wreck of a movie. Coming in at number 3, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. You all asked for it and here it is. Released in 1998 and directed by Danny Cannon, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer stars the likes of Jennifer Love Hewitt, Freddie Prinze Jr., Brandy, Mika Pfeiffer and Bill Cobbs, with the movie being the second installment in the I Know What You Did Last Summer franchise. The movie takes place 1 year after the events of the first movie, with it once again following Ben Wills, a hit-and-run victim who stalks a teenager, Julie, and her friends to an upscale resort, with the friends being forced to open up about their dark and buried secrets. Now, the original movie, I Know What You Did Last Summer, wasn't anything to write home about, but it's certainly a worthy teen horror flick and one that fills many people with nostalgia. I like to return to it every few years when I remember it exists, because I so often forget that it was even made. However, when you dig deep into it, you realise the performances are actually incredibly poor, and plot holes that are so large you are unable to see past them. However, people enjoyed the movie, so when the sequel came around, folks were excited, although I'm sure a lot of people wish they had set their bar a little low, because this movie was even worse than what folks were expecting. The entire plot is laughable. The killer, to put it simply, flies Jennifer Love Hewitt and her friends to the Bahamas to essentially kill them off one by one. The movie is honestly a giant waste of time, and it is followed by an even more laughable horror, I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. So bad. Coming in at number 2, we have The Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. Another movie I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting to appear on this list. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is absolutely horrendous. Released in 1986 and directed once again by Tobe Hooper, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 serves as a parody sequel to The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, with it starring the likes of Dennis Hopper, Caroline Williams, Bill Moseley, and Bill Johnson. The plot follows a radio host who is victimized and captured by Leatherface and his deranged family, all while a Texas marshal is hunting them down. I think we can all agree that the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is somewhat of a masterpiece, one of the trailblazers in the horror genre, and one that has people returning each and every year. Heck, they even teach you about it in film school. Well, at least my university did. I had a whole class on it, and then I wrote an essay, and then I compared the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to the, gas drought in the States, and then I was told my essay was too heavy-handed. I'm not bitter, but I am, because I had a point. However, the sequel, which was released more than a decade later, did not live up to its incredibly high expectations. I mean, as the description states, it is a parody sequel. However, no part of this movie is enjoyable. In my opinion, that is. The movie is nonsensical, with characters straight out of a parody movie. It's not scary in the slightest, and if what it was going for was comedy, then it had no right to market itself as a sequel. That's all I'm saying. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Now, I am a big lover of the original Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, but even I can admit that the second installment was absolutely horrendous. Released in 1985 and directed by Jack Shoulder, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge stars the likes of Mark Patton, Kim Myers, Robert Russler, and Robert Englund, with the film following Jesse Walsh, a teenager who begins to have reoccurring nightmares about the bladed killer Freddy Krueger after he moves into the former home of Nancy Thompson, aka the protagonist from the first movie. Out of all the movies in the franchise, this one aged the worst, considerably, mostly due to the effects and the horrible acting performed by the teenage leads. Now, while the story and directing is still credible, somewhat, most picked up on the undertones fairly quickly, aka the homoerotic subtext, with many believing the film to be a commentary on, I quote, Jesse being a repressed homosexual. It made the point of the movie very blurry, while also taking a stab at the psychosexual undertones in most horrors. Now, if that had been the point of the entire movie, people would have very well applauded it. I certainly would have, but that wasn't the point of the movie, and the producers knew they failed viewers, which is why it serves no purpose in the rest of the franchise. You can easily jump from the first movie to the third without missing a beat. However, I will say the sequel is a good one to watch with friends and laugh at. It's comically bad that you might actually have a good time watching it. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with our list? What is the worst horror movie you've ever watched? Leave us your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 5. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 worst horror movies you should never watch, part 4. Angela Beta said, another movie to add to the list is Melancholia. There are no words to describe this terrible movie. Another great video from our Queen Lucy of Darkness. Will you ever review The Collector and The Collection? I thought they were pretty good. Thank you, cheers. Okay, a lot to unwrap here, to be honest. Melancholia is excellent. I think anyway. I mean, it's a very different Lars von Trier film. More accessible, I'd say. Probably the most accessible film he's ever made. Also completely goes against all the dogma stuff. So anyway, I enjoy Melancholia. It filled me with complete, utter existential dread. It kept me up at night. I think about those final moments in that film so frequently, as that rogue planet's just hurtling toward Earth and then the world's gonna end, you know? Think about it all the time. That was a great movie. I hate Lars von Trier as a person, but I think he's a very good director. But it's probably the easiest watch I've had watching one of his movies. And you guys will know if you watch Lars von Trier movies. If you've seen The Idiots, you know what I'm talking about. Also, The Collector crippled me when I first watched that movie. I remember exactly where I was. I was in my bedroom in Calgary when I was in high school. I watched on my laptop and I was petrified with fear because I got in my head that someone had broken into my house and set traps around my room. So I stood with my bedroom door closed and my body against it because I was so scared. Anyway, The Collection was that's how I thought. Forced Feedback Classic Game Review said, watched Crimson Peak a few days ago. Oof, knew it wasn't exactly Oscar material going in, but holy hell, the storytelling was just awful and the ending was an absolute joke. It was like The Haunting, 1999, meets a series of unfortunate events, except far less creative than either. I completely agree. I've seen Crimson Peak once, and it wasn't memorable to me at all. I remember not enjoying it. And I had pretty good expectations for it because Jessica Chastain rarely lets me down, although she did do Mama, and that let everyone down. So Maybe we should set the bar a little lower these days. Yeah, I thought it looked great, but yeah, it was shit. Dorsey said, "Oh, my life was the worst horror movie ever made. Please, Dark Queen, save me, lol. Official member, Legion of Lucy." Oh, I'm sorry. What can I do to help? I will help you. But yeah, that sucks. I hope life gets better for you. I hope you're happy. I hope you're all happy. Blue Dog 79 said, "I have a theory about all the people who have been asking why they haven't seen Lucy in the videos in a while. These people are looking too deep into her eyes and having their memories erased. For the love of all that is holy, when Lucy looks into the camera, don't make eye contact. Look away from the screen." Wow. Don't ever look away from me. If I'm looking at you, look right into my eyes. But the effects, I can't tell you what's gonna happen. You might turn to stone. I'm like Medusa, you know? I kind of am. I think I am Medusa. Can't confirm or deny that, so we'll see what happens. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. And until next time, I'll see you later. The fact that there's a franchise is funny. But it's certainly a worthy teen horror flick, and one that films many people. Oh, and one that fills many with. What the f am I saying?